You know that feeling, right? You spend hours cramming for a test. You feel like you've got it all down, totally mastered it. And then you wake up the next day and it's just gone. It is so frustrating. But what if I told you it's not actually your fault? Seriously, let's get into it because it turns out your brain is designed to forget. And yeah, that's the million-dollar question we're going to tackle. We always think of forgetting as some kind of personal failure, like we just didn't try hard enough. But here's the twist. Once you really get why your brain does this, you can learn how to outsmart it, to trick it into remembering pretty much anything you want. Okay, so think about your brain like this. It's not a perfect hard drive that stores everything forever. It's more like a super efficient file manager. And its main job is to constantly delete files it thinks are just clutter, to make space for the stuff that actually matters. It's not a bug, it really is a feature. So how does this whole file deletion thing actually work? Well, scientists have pretty much narrowed it down to three main culprits. Three bad guys that are responsible for our memory loss. And once you understand them, you can start to build a real strategy to fight back. All right, here they are: decay, interference, and retrieval failure. They sound a little technical, but they're not. Each one just has a slightly different way of messing with your memories. So let's break them down, one by one. First up is decay. This one's the most straightforward. You learn something new, and then you just never use it again. That connection in your brain, that neural pathway, it just gets weaker and weaker until it fades away. It's the classic use it or lose it situation, just like a muscle you never work out. Next, we have interference. This is a big one. This is when new stuff you learn actively gets in the way of the old stuff. I mean, the password example is perfect, right? You change your password and then, poof, the old one is just gone from your brain. Your brain is trying to be helpful by prioritizing the newest information, but it makes remembering older things a real pain. And finally, maybe the most maddening one of all, retrieval failure. This is when the memory is still in there. It hasn't decayed, it hasn't been pushed out. You just can't find it. You can't access the file. This is that horrible feeling during a test when you're staring at a question and you know the answer, but your mind is just a total blank. So you take these three things, decay, interference, and retrieval failure, and they all team up to create the big villain of our story, the forgetting curve. A psychologist named Herman Ebbinghaus figured this out way back in the 1880s, and it's this shocking visual of just how fast we forget things if we don't do anything about it. And get ready for this, because the number is kind of insane. Ebbinghaus found that on average, we lose a staggering 70% of new information within the first 24 hours. 70%. I mean, that's almost everything you learned yesterday just vanished. And you can see that brutal drop-off right here on this chart. On day one, right after you learn something, you're at 100%. You're feeling good. But look at day two. It just falls off a cliff. This is your brain's default setting. This is your brain on autopilot. So why does this happen? Well, your brain is just being super efficient. It's constantly sorting through everything, asking one very simple question. Is this important enough to keep? It's a survival thing, you know? It saves energy. So the key takeaway here is that our job is to convince our brain that the answer to that question is yes. And that's the awesome part. We absolutely can convince it. So now we get to the good stuff. We are going to arm you with an arsenal of 4 powerful science-backed techniques to completely flatten that forgetting curve and make your memory practically unstoppable. All right, here's your new toolkit: spaced repetition, active recall, the Feynman Technique, and making it emotional. And look, these aren't just clever little tricks. These are methods that work with your brain's natural wiring to send a crystal clear signal that says, hey, this piece of information is important, keep it. So let's kick it off with spaced repetition. This is the exact opposite of cramming. Instead of trying to shove everything in your head at once, you strategically review information at specific, increasing intervals. Maybe 10 minutes after you first learn it, then a day later, then 3 days after that, and so on. Every single review literally resets the forgetting curve. And the logic here is just, it's beautiful. Every time that information pops back up, your brain basically goes, this thing again? This keeps coming back? It must be important. You're literally training it to recognize what matters. This is the magic behind why apps like Anki work so incredibly well. Okay, technique number 2 is a total game changer. It's called active recall. This means you have to ditch just passively rereading your notes. Highlighting stuff feels productive, but for your brain, it's super lazy. Active recall forces your brain to actually work, to pull the information out of your memory. So close the book. Try to explain the concept out loud. It's harder, for sure, but that effort is exactly what builds a strong, lasting memory. Next up, one of my personal favorites, the Feynman Technique. This is the ultimate test of whether you really understand something. The goal is to explain a complex topic in the simplest possible terms, like you're trying to teach it to a 5-year-old. The second you get stuck or have to use complicated jargon, you've found a hole in your own understanding. It's brilliant. And our final technique, make it emotional. Let's be honest, our brains are not wired to remember dry, boring facts. They're wired for stories, for vivid images, for things that make us feel something. I mean, why can you still remember the lyrics to some cheesy song from 20 years ago? Because it's tied to an emotion, a memory, a feeling. Let's take a classic biology fact. Mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. Okay, that's a fact. It's also super boring. But what if you imagine tiny buzzing factories inside every single one of your cells, with little workers running around 24/7 to power this huge glowing city that is you? Now, which of those two things are you going to remember tomorrow? It's not even a contest. The image wins every time. So when you start to put all these techniques together, something really powerful starts to happen. You're not a passive victim of the forgetting curve anymore. You're the one in control. You become the architect of your own knowledge, choosing what to keep and making sure it stays there for the long haul. So please remember this one big idea. Your brain isn't failing you. It's not broken. It's just trying to be efficient. It's optimizing. When you use these strategies, all you're doing is learning how to speak your brain's language. You're telling it what you've decided is essential. You're finally working with the system, not fighting against it. The power is completely in your hands now. You've got the tools. You can learn that new language, master that instrument, or dive deep into any subject that you're passionate about. So the only real question left is, now that you know how, what will you choose